I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. We are not in our State House studio this week, as it is undergoing a much-needed technical upgrade. Thanks to funding from the Alabama legislature, the updates will allow us to improve the production and delivery of the Capitol Journal coverage you count on. But it's going to take a few more weeks to complete. So please bear with us as the show has a little different look, but hopefully all the same quality. On to the news. Some drama in the U.S. Senate this week involving Alabama's senior senator, Tommy Tuberville. For months, Tuberville has been holding up the promotions of military officers in protest of the Pentagon's post-Dobbs policy of paying for the travel for service members and their family members to receive abortions out of state. Democrats have long objected to Tuberville's hold, but this week, some of his Republican colleagues went to the Senate floor to voice their objections to his tactics. Senators Joni Ernst of Iowa, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Dan Sullivan of Alaska, and Todd Young of Indiana, all former military, pleaded with Tuberville to allow the service nominees to advance and to take another approach to fight the Pentagon's policy. During a 4-hour debate on the floor, Tuberville did not budge.
We stand for the most vulnerable of our society, the unborn. I know my colleagues here share that conviction. The disagreement we're having today is about tactics. So let me explain why I'm doing this, how we got here, and where we go from here. 9 months ago, the Pentagon announced that they would start using our taxpayer dollars to facilitate abortion. Let me say that one more time. 9 months ago, the Pentagon announced by a memo that they would start using our taxpayer dollars to facilitate abortion. The Pentagon is now paying for travel and extra time off for service members and their dependents to get abortions.
And we have courts. If you think they've done something illegal, go to court. That's how you handle these things. The Pentagon has issued a legal opinion I disagree with, saying this doesn't violate the Hyde Amendment. I disagree with it. Here's what's going to happen. You've just denied this lady a promotion. You did that. All of us are ready to promote her because she deserves to be promoted. She had nothing to do with this policy. Let me say it again. Everybody in this body could find an issue with any administration they don't agree with. And what we're going to do is open up Pandora's box. Today is abortion policy. If we take back the White House, we'll go back to the Mexico City policy, limiting dollars to be given to overseas entities that are engaged in the abortion business. Some pro-choice people don't like that.
The day after that floor debate, the Senate did confirm 3 top military officers, including the first female chief of staff, with Tuberville's support. Republicans are planning to have a closed-door meeting next week to discuss a way forward on military nominations and the abortion issue. U.S. Senator Katie Britt was in Montgomery this week, offering a Washington update to the Montgomery Chamber of Commerce. She touched on a number of topics, including her focus on fixing the immigration crisis at the southern border.
We have a humanitarian and a national security crisis happening on our border every single day. I mean, we are at the point now that under President Biden's tenure, if we keep going, we've had about 8 million people so far. We will hit over 10 million people who have come across our border during his presidency. And when you put the numbers, when you stack them up, that would make it the 11th largest state in the United States of America. What we're doing is unsustainable, not to mention inhumane, because it's there that I've talked to Border Patrol agents that tell me about pulling lifeless bodies of kids and mothers from the river, and you talk to young women who tell you not just that they were raped, but how many times a day they were raped. And then you talk to men who tell you how much they paid, where they're going, what their job is, and how much more they owe. And I want you to know that right here in this community, we have drug cartels coming around every other week to collect what they're owed. So these people aren't living an American dream, true legal, they're living an American nightmare. And when we look at the terrorists, it is open season, obviously, for drug cartels, for human traffickers, and for terrorists. But you look at the number of people on the terrorist watch list just in September that were caught at the border, it was 18. I want you to put this in perspective. We've had 1.5 million known gotaways that have come across our border over the last 2 years. That means that we saw them on a camera, detected them, but we never touched gloves with them. That means we don't know who they are, where they're going, or what their intentions are. In order to keep our homeland safe and secure, we must secure our border.
Answering questions from reporters, Britt shared more from her recent trip to Israel and the ongoing conflict in the Middle East.
It was things that I thought that I would never see, meaning that they were beyond comprehension. And number one, meeting with the families of the hostages and just seeing their heart had been ripped out and the uncertainty that they were all facing and how their world had truly been turned upside down and with a lack of knowing if there, when there would be a resolution. Then meeting with the Israeli government and actually seeing those videos. It's one thing to read about it, it's one thing for someone to tell you, but when you watch it occur, and when you watch the barbaric atrocities that these disgusting, despicable terrorists put on the innocent people of Israel, it just reaffirms your resolve in standing with Israel, ensuring that we eradicate Hamas. Nothing else is acceptable. There is no way that if these things happened in our community that we would tuck our kids in at night without having that resolved. So we want to make sure that we continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel and eradicate Hamas, not just for the people of Israel, not just for the Jewish people, but also for the innocent people of Gaza. That is ultimately what allows us to have peace and prosperity for all people.
At the State House this week, a commission convened by House Speaker Nathaniel Ledbetter met to discuss the state's lagging workforce participation rate. While unemployment remains at record lows, the percentage of able-bodied Alabamians either working or looking for work is at 57%, among the lowest rates in the country. Commission members explored the reasons why people have opted out of the workforce, including lack of affordable child care, lack of employer health insurance, and potentially losing their benefits.
We have gone from being, I guess, national average, I'm assuming 65 was close to the national average at that time, to where now we're below the national average. Can you identify what's happened in Alabama versus other states that has driven to that dramatic decline?
Particularly what has happened in Alabama is our prime age male labor force participation rate has gone down, and there has been some structural shifts in employment patterns. So there was a lot of what, for lack of a better term, cut and sew operations, particularly in North Alabama in the 90s, and those were offshored. But we didn't make a single automobile in the state of Alabama in 1995, and now we're about to, at some point, become the nation's number 2, number 1 automotive manufacturer. So we've seen a lot more advanced manufacturing, but what we've got to do, and a lot of the things that the community college is doing, is particularly work with this 25 to 54-year-old group to get them the skills training they need to be able to participate in new jobs.
When we started recruiting for Mercedes in 1995, we got 63,000 applications for 20 jobs. Today at Mercedes, still a really good place to work. If we put an ad out there for jobs, we might get a couple of thousand. I think some of it is, obviously there's a lot of new jobs here and a lot of jobs been created and expansions have occurred. And so, the numbers are just what they are.
The only way we can find out what the handicap is of hiring people and getting good employees for the state of Alabama is, being able to find out what issues that everybody has. It's not one thing that's a problem. There's many things out there that's handicapping us being able to hire people and why people are not getting back into the workforce.
Veterans Day is next weekend, but the capital city got a head start with a ceremony honoring those who have served in the armed forces. Brigadier General William Freeman, the Commandant of Air University, and Alabama Commissioner of Veterans Affairs Kent Davis spoke about the importance of honoring veterans, not just on November 11th, but throughout the year.
So this is our second event, ceremony honoring the veterans in the Montgomery River region. We're real proud to do it. We know this is one of the best defense communities in the country. We were awarded that, and we know what an important role our veterans have in our community. They're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our colleagues and coaches, and we're just so proud that we could support and recognize them today. It's just so important. You heard a couple themes there from General Freeman and our chairman, Chairman Boone, about how freedom isn't free. And it's all about community and service and recognizing that service, especially at times like this where there's a lot of national security challenges out there. It's important to remember the people that help us defend our freedoms. When we talk about the military folks here, we also like to remember that it's not just those in uniform that serve, but their families as well. So it's important to recognize them all.
In anticipation of Veterans Day, Governor Kay Ivey has proclaimed Thursday, November 9th, as Military Day in Alabama. She's encouraging all service members, including active duty, veterans, National Guardsmen, and reservists, to wear their uniform that day if their work allows it. Capitol Journal's Randy Scott has a follow-up story this week on cybersecurity awareness with some helpful tips on how to protect your information in this digital world.
The internet and cyberspace touch every aspect of our lives. This, along with the need to stay protected, are constantly expanding, says IT specialist.
There's always going to be changing security problems. There's going to be new vectors that you have to go after and train for. It's a constant struggle, and you have to stay vigilant. There is no set it and forget it.
I think what your viewers should take from this is that the more I know about cybersecurity, the easier it is for me to know what to protect myself from. So there are multiple threats out there on a daily basis.
Tony Porterfield is the Chief Technology Officer for the City of Montgomery. His job is to keep the city's cyber system safe from hackers and other dangers.
We utilize a bunch of software to keep us protected, keep the network protected. On a day-to-day basis, we basically keep the city's IT up and running, from the fire department, police department, sanitation, everywhere. So we protect all these departments.
Porterfield says he's seen cyber incidents close to Montgomery, but believes the capital city is safe.
It's very important that we utilize all those tools that we have to keep the network secure, along with working with Maxwell, the county. We do work with the county, and we work with the library, the museums.
There's no perfect safety in the digital world. There are lots of systems and programs and the monitors you can get to help you with that. But it's about staying vigilant, staying active.
Brad Shaw is the CEO of Shaw Technology, a company that specializes in cybersecurity. He has a few tips for people to stay safe dealing with the internet.
Always having it on your mind that everywhere you put a password, everywhere you put your information, you need to go back and look at it, reassess. If you hear stuff in the news, again, we can't predict the future. You need to go and react accordingly.
One thing these experts agree on is safe practices should be followed by citizens and businesses.
Stay away from any phishing emails. If anyone ever asks you for your personal banking, personal information through the telephone or over the web, that's a definite red flag that you should pay attention to.
One of the most common problems is people use the same password in personal places that then turn around and affect our business customers. A lot of the personal places, you think Facebook, think LinkedIn, they can be compromised and that information then used to go into other aspects.
For Capitol Journal, I'm Randy Scott.
Coming up after the break, I'll sit down with Secretary of State Wes Allen to discuss new mechanisms for voter integrity his office has rolled out. Later in the show, I'll talk with Steve Livingston, the newly elected majority leader in the Alabama Senate, about his new role. And State Representative Jeremy Gray joins me to discuss his bid for Congress in the newly redrawn 2nd Congressional District. Those interviews when we come back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
Joining me next is Alabama Secretary of State, Wes Allen. Mr. Secretary,
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for coming on Capital Journal.
Thank you, Todd.
And thanks for having us in your office while we don't really have a studio home this
That's
week.
no problem. Glad you could come over.
Well, last time I had you on, it was actually during the campaign.
Right.
So you hadn't been elected yet, and it was, I guess you were still a state representative from Pike County with just one district. Now you have the whole state, and you have the big job. How's it been going with this, how you've adjusted to having a
it's
statewide
been
role?
Very humbling experience to be able to drive up to the state capitol each and every day, knowing that I represent over 5 million people of our wonderful state. I traveled to every county, every corner, everything in between, all 67 counties during the campaign, and just solidified what I already knew about the state, that we have great people, we have a great state, lots of resources, and just love our state. I'm proud to be from Alabama, and I've been very fortunate and just humbled to be able to be elected and to be trusted with this office. And it's been going good. We've worked hard. We got a great staff put together, and just turn them loose, let them go to work, let them use their energies and their creative juices to go work and make things happen for this office, but also for the state of Alabama.
Yeah, big part of it is building a team.
Yeah.
And here we are. It's election time again, and I guess we were joking before. It's always election time.
It is.
Around here.
Right.
But looking at, we've got specials coming up. We've got these midterms with all the congressional races. How does your office go about preparing for a big election, but also having these elections in between? You've got to focus on that too.
Sure.
Are we ready for all of them?
Yeah, no, we're always constantly working, getting ready for elections. We got a great director of elections, Jeff Elrod, and his staff are doing a tremendous job. And, listen, 2024 is going to be a big year. A lot of eyeballs are going to be on it. It's a presidential year, of course, and then coming out of the redistricting court order for those new maps, we're pushing those out to the boards of registrars around the state to make sure we get those maps implemented, working alongside our local elected officials that run the elections, your probate judges, your circuit clerks, your sheriffs, boards of registrars, your poll workers. I mean, working in conjunction and side by side with those individuals is a pleasure, and I know they work extremely hard because I used to be a local election official, a probate judge, and so I know exactly what they're going through right now in preparation for the March 5th presidential primary. And like you said, we just had some special elections for House District 16 and House District 55. And then with news recently about Senator Schofield resigning and going to a different position, that'll open up a new spot for someone else to run, and we're getting prepared for that even now. Right. And we'll be ready. We'll be ready.
Yeah, and I kind of misspoke. I said midterms. It's actually a presidential year.
Yeah.
It's midterms in our parlance in terms of legislature, right? The legislature's not all running. Yeah. But so walk us through how that works. Somebody resigns from the legislature or, otherwise vacates. Yeah. Governor calls a special election, but that's really involved with your office, and there are certain dates that are set, and there's a process, I'm sure, that it works out. Walk us through that process.
Yeah, so we get an administrative calendar proposal ready to go and to present to the governor, legal staff to give them some options about what a special election would look like and how it lines up. Of course, there are so many things statutorily that the local election officials have to go by, and what we have to go by, and what we're under. So we have to make sure those are ready, and we have to make sure that we abide by the law, what the law lays out for us here in Alabama, and our federal law as well. And so we give them some proposals, and then the governor would make a proclamation calling the special election.
I'm thinking back to the last election, the primary in particular. There were some discrepancies between districts, and it was kind of blamed on redistricting, right? Some of these district lines had changed, and so certain precincts had some, mistaken votes and things like that, but it was blamed on redistricting. Well, now we've got 2 brand new congressional districts, right? The lines have changed. Thankfully, most counties have remained intact, but you do have, especially down there in Mobile, some precinct lines. How do you go about making sure that kind of thing doesn't happen, because of this redistricting situation?
Yeah, we got 6 counties that are split under the court-ordered plan that we were handed. When we first came into office, and we remembered what happened in May and June of 2022, when you had some counties that some voters, when they showed up to the precinct, were put in the wrong district or wrong precinct, they were given the wrong ballots, and that's just unacceptable. So we started trying to find solutions to make sure that didn't happen again. And one of the ways we explored was making sure we could make available geographical information software, GIS, to all the counties in Alabama if they didn't have it, and if they didn't have it, if they wanted it, and to utilize it. And we're paying for that system through the Help America Vote Act federal funds that are made available to all states. Federal funding every 2 years, and so it eases the burden on counties. It picks up the installation and 2 years of maintenance, but it's basically helping these counties and these boards of registrars make sure it's a mapping software system. So making sure Todd Stacy's in the correct precinct, so the public can be confident when they walk in the precinct that they're getting the right ballot, especially for these counties that are split. And so it's very, very important. We're working very hard and very diligently with these county election officials to make sure we have that GIS software in place. We're focusing on those 6 counties that don't have the GIS to get that information and to get that software to the boards of registrars.
Well, switching gears, I want to talk about the AVID, Alabama Voter Integrity Database.
Yeah.
This is a change from the old ERIC system that when you came into office, you said, no, we're not going to be involved in that anymore. You promised to create your own as a state-based system.
Yeah. Right.
So you've done this now. Talk us through exactly what this does and why it's important.
Well, as you know, I was on your show several times during the campaign, even as a state representative, talking about the reasons why we were going to withdraw from ERIC. And we litigated that when I raised my right hand right out here on the steps on January 16th and walked in this office. I signed the letter at that desk right over there on day 1, right after I came off the stage. And, it's real easy to kind of go blow something up or to tear something up just for the sake of doing it. But I had in my mind that we weren't just going to do that and withdraw Alabama. We were going to come up with an Alabama-based solution and to build something and to make sure we were taking care of voter file maintenance, because election integrity, election security, and you've heard a lot about it since 2020, it's at the top of people's mind. That's what I heard throughout the campaign, is that making sure we take care of voter file maintenance. That is the foundation of election integrity. And we've got to make sure it's just like daily hygiene. I borrowed that statement from one of my colleagues, Frank LaRose in Ohio, who used it. It's just like daily hygiene. You take care of yourself, you bathe yourself daily. Voter file maintenance is a daily process of making sure we have election integrity. But the AVID system is the first of its kind in the country. We've already been talking to some other states that are really interested in what we've been able to do. But it's a 4-pronged system, and we're very proud of it. From day 1, we worked on it. And it has taken a team effort. I've got such a great team in this office, and they have worked so extremely hard to make sure we get this thing stood up, to make sure we take care of our voter file maintenance here in Alabama while protecting the personal information of the people of Alabama, and that's what AVID does.
So you say voter file maintenance. So, if a voter dies or moves away, things like that, making sure that they're no longer on the rolls, but also making sure that people get, if they move or is that what you kind of mean by?
There's a lot of variables in there. Yeah, exactly right. And I want people to understand there's a federal law that was passed in 1993, the National Voter Registration Act, that President Bill Clinton signed into law. We just can't remove people just because they move. It takes 4 years to remove someone off of the state voter list if they haven't passed away. If they pass away, we can remove them instantaneously when we receive the information. But if we receive information they've moved or received a driver's license from out of state, or the national change of address, or whatever other information may come into our possession, it takes 4 years to set them on that process. And we have to send a postcard. We have to alert them that we've received information to either update or pull themselves off the voter list. So it's an extensive system that we have to make sure we protect the voters, but also making sure we have the cleanest and most accurate voting rolls in the state, for our state, but also in the country.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I remember the old ERIC system. One of the features was kind of communication with other states.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you would also you would have called that a bug because you weren't confident in some of that integrity.
Mm-hmm.
But sharing information with other states so that, okay, well, if they move to this state, then we can communicate and kind of have that role. Are we still going to be able to communicate with other states under this system?
Sure. The first prong that we're very proud of is their interagency agreement with ALEA. So anytime someone moves out of state and gets a driver's license in another state, that state they moved to or got that driver's license in alerts Alabama.
Okay.
And so we're getting that data from ALEA, which Secretary Hal Taylor has been tremendous, and his team have been tremendous to help us with this project. So we're doing that. Some of the critics have said, well, you're leaving a 31 state membership in ERIC, and now you're going down to another portion of this is our state partnerships with other states. For the first time ever, we've got Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, all of our border states for the first time ever. And then we've signed Arkansas, a bilateral agreement with them to exchange voter data as well. But if you look at it and you take the driver's license information, that's a 49 state solution. If you take the information we're getting from the national change of address, which is another prong, that's another 49 state solution. And then the last prong in this AVID system that we have is the National Death Index, which is kept by the Social Security Administration. So that's anytime anyone goes out of state for any reason and passes away in another state, we're getting that information as well. So we got a lot of nets out there to make sure our voter file maintenance is strong.
Let's move on to a legislative issue that you've been really involved in. That's ballot harvesting.
Sure.
This is, trying to make sure limit who can access somebody's absentee ballot, right?
Sure.
With it,
and the application.
Right, application for. Well, I'll let you because it's your legislation. It's being handled in the Senate by Garland Gudger, but it's your legislation, so you explain it.
Well, we definitely support it. Last year, it came out of the House in a strong vote and got to the Senate, didn't get a vote. This year, it's coming back with as SB 1. Senator Garland Gudger is going to be carrying that piece of legislation. We're very supportive of SB 1 because it strengthens the absentee process. Even opponents of the bill admitted last year that anytime there's voter fraud in Alabama, it's normally in the orbit of absentee voting. And don't get me wrong, we've got to keep, and I want everybody to hear me, we've got to keep our absentee voting process the way we have it, but we need to strengthen it to make sure it cannot be manipulated. I want everybody to hear me and understand me, is that this bill does not disenfranchise anybody that's disabled. Matter of fact, we enshrine in the language the federal definitions of who's disabled, and if you're disabled, you can choose anybody that you want to help you with the application or the ballot. And it does not affect the military and overseas voters at all, because we can never take away someone's right to vote if they're overseas defending our country. So we protect it. We protect the absentee process.
Because that is, you're right. That's what the critics say is that, well, no, you're taking away the ability of, someone's grandchild helping grandma in a nursing home and things like that, and that it would basically strip away voting rights and keep people from voting. How do you answer those critics?
Well, we don't. We've got all kind of exceptions built in. Second degree of kinship, you can choose any. Somebody that lives in the household with you can help you. I mean, when you go down the list that we've got mandated in the bill itself, we protect military and overseas voters. It says they're exempt from this whole bill. If you're disabled by what the federal law says is the definition of being disabled, you can choose anybody that you want to. So those critics that are out there just not being truthful about the bill or what it does, we are protecting. We want to make sure that the ballot traffickers and ballot harvesters can't pay someone or can't receive payment for going out and helping someone with their application and manipulating the process. And also another thing this bill does is protects the manipulation of the absentee process when these organizations from out of state send these applications that are pre-filled to these homes or wherever they go, and to make sure that, because we get the phone calls, this office has gotten the phone calls in the past, people are upset, they're confused when they get these in the mail. Sometimes it's to them, sometimes it's to someone that has lived in their the home that they're in now previously to them. So it confuses people, and we just want to make sure we strengthen the absentee process, but at the same time making sure that we don't disenfranchise those that want to vote absentee, because absentee voting is an integral part. It is an important part of the voting process, and we want to make sure we protect it but also strengthen it as well.
Well, before I let you go, while I have you,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard these and seen these articles of speculating on who might run for Congress in the newly constituted 2nd District.
Yeah.
Your name is always on those lists, partially because you're from Pike County,
Yeah.
you know, which is right in the heart of that district.
Sure.
So let me just ask you, any thoughts about running for Congress in the 2nd District?
I am not running for the 2nd Congressional District. I'm enjoying being Secretary of State.
All right, that's definitive enough. A lot of times
Yeah.
people will say, well, maybe, I don't
No,
know.
I'm not doing that.
We'll talk about it, but you
not doing
definitive
that.
no, you like your job.
We worked so hard to get here. I'm enjoying what we're doing. So, yeah, we love it.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time,
Thank you,
and thanks for
Todd.
coming on Capitol Journal.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the online video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
The George C. Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville has been the heart of the U.S. space program since its beginnings in the late 1950s. Marshall Space Flight Center was designated as the agency's propulsion center, developing the rockets that would launch NASA's missions into space. Marshall helped make history in 1961 when its Mercury Redstone rocket powered Alan B. Shepard into suborbital flight, making him the first American in space. Marshall's major task during the 1960s was the development of the Saturn rockets that were used in the Apollo moon missions. They aimed to fulfill President John F. Kennedy's challenge to NASA to execute a moon landing by the end of the decade. Saturn V rockets powered each of the 13 Apollo missions launched between 1967 and 1973, including the first moon landing on July 20, 1969. Marshall also developed the propulsion for the Space Shuttle program and is currently integral to the science and life systems on the International Space Station and the lead center for the Space Launch System development.
You're watching Alabama Public Television.
Joining me next is the newly elected Senate Majority Leader, Steve Livingston. Mr. Leader, congratulations.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate you having me on. I'm not quite used to answering to that name yet. So.
Well, I'm sure it will take some getting used to, but again, congratulations. That happened this week as Clay Schofield, the previous Majority Leader, stepped down from the legislature to seek other opportunities. But walk me through your process. I mean, when did you decide that you wanted to be Majority Leader, and why? What made you seek that role?
We have there's 27 of us, and we have a really good group of guys, and we needed somebody that could step up and be their leader and help us to go down those paths that we do in the future, this next legislative session, the next couple of years. I felt like I have a good relationship with all the guys. Hopefully the vote proved that, and that I'll be able to help lead them down.
Mm-hmm. So this is a caucus vote, right? So y'all meet, whether is it an in-person thing or sometimes it's virtual, and I guess you give your pitch, others run and give their pitch, and then it's a discussion and a vote?
So the procedure that was this time was outlined. Senator Reed had laid out a plan of how we would proceed, and went down to selecting 3 members that were not running to be vote counters. Okay. And also be the secret keepers. We didn't share the tallies after that, and we won't ask the tallies. Didn't share the tallies. They gave us a couple of minutes to speak in caucus.
Because you wanted to be a secret ballot, just for the relationship.
Just the relationship, yeah. Don't want any hard feelings hurt anything. So you're probably aware, but Senator Chambliss and Senator Elliott also had their names in the hat, and I was blessed to receive a vote on the first ballot. So.
Yeah. Well, talk about the job of Majority Leader, because I mean, there are different leadership roles in the Senate, right? You've got the President Pro Tem. Well, you've got Lieutenant Governor.
Well, we've got the Lieutenant Governor presides over the body. The President Pro Tem is I guess the governor of the body, as the case may be. He represents the full body, all 35 members of the Senate. The majority leader represents the 27 Republicans, and the minority leader would represent the 8 minority members. And we have caucus meetings regularly during session to lay out our plans of how we're going to work this week. And during the off session, we meet and talk about, and we'll do that at the end of this month. We're going to talk about our legislative plan for next year.
And what I noticed with Mr. Schofield was, didn't go to the mic all the time. Wasn't really all that outspoken. Was more working behind the scenes. It seems like that job, you're more working behind the scenes than really even out front.
I think that's going to be probably the case with me. As you well know, you've tried to get me on several times for some other things, and I just have declined during reapportionment. But yeah, it's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes on, helping keeping the train on the tracks and making sure it's on time.
Well, speaking of that, part of that is working with the minority, right? Because
Yes, sir.
at any time, whether it's Mr. Singleton, the minority leader, Mr. Smitherman, who's right there too, they don't have the numbers, but they can use the filibuster to their advantage. And it seems like keeping those relationships harmonious, keeping that balance, if you will, is really important to getting things done.
Absolutely, and the rules are there. They're the same for both parties, and all they're doing is using the rules in their favor, in the case may be. I think maybe one of the advantages I had over Senator Chambliss or Senator Elliott was the fact that I had done confirmations this year. I think the desk told us we had done a record 131 of them, and you realize that the minority anybody has the ability to speak an hour on each confirmation. So moving those through and keeping the flow through going, and then of course when we got into reapportionment, that is working with minority party there.
Well, I noticed that Speaker Ledbetter, your good friend, Speaker Ledbetter, had some really kind words to say. I mean, you had statements come out from different folks from the Senate, but here's from the House, and explaining that he admires you. You're one of his best friends. So talk about y'all's relationship. Seems like kind of unique, you being majority leader, him being speaker.
I think he's looking into that. That may be the first situation this has ever occurred where we're out of the same district area. But Speaker Ledbetter and I met each other, I guess, in 2012 when we started running. I was running for the Senate and he was running for the House. And we quickly realized that we were pretty fast friends, and we've done a lot of things together. And I respect him as speaker and as a good and true friend, he and his wife both.
Well, that's probably going to be beneficial here in the State House too, because I mean, the House and the Senate, especially when you get late into session, it's, bills going back and forth, people are getting tired and punchy and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure having that close relationship will probably help y'all be productive and solve some of those, iron out some issues.
It wouldn't be the first time I've been used to help work through a situation with the speaker, and vice versa in the Senate when he's got a problem. So.
Yeah, an emissary, if you will. Well, you mentioned redistricting, and that's, I know that was a big issue. You led the committee, you co-chaired the committee. And again, no hard feelings for not coming on. We understand at the advice of counsel. But that was a tough slog. Y'all went through all the way through the special session. That week was just a slog. Then goes back to court and gets rejected. I'm sure that was disappointing for y'all.
Absolutely. I thought we had drawn a pretty good map. We had changed District 2 from around 28.5%, 29% the black voting age population to 40%. That was very significant, and the court's word was opportunity district. Thought it made an opportunity district, but they disagreed with that. So,
what have conversations been like post the court redrawing these lines? I mean, we're going to have to do this redistricting process again anyway. Are there lessons learned? I mean, what's the reaction been?
I think all the guidelines that we've been working by that we've done for 30 years now seem like have been thrown to the sidelines. We'll start next year. We won't have to do this again on the congressional seats for a while. Obviously, the Attorney General is going to litigate that case and see if they can, instead of most likely violated Section 2, they're going either we did or we didn't. So.
And maybe get some clarity on what exactly you're supposed to do.
Clarity on how we do it and what we do. And you had prefaced the question earlier on House and Senate. There are a number of House seats, a number of Senate seats that are challenged that will be put to court in October, I think, of 24.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because the congressional map issue is over until Supreme Court, whether or not they decide to hear it. But that's not all the redistricting you did. You did legislative districts for the House and the Senate, plus school board. So you said there's already. My question was, are we going to be back in court again on those districts like we have in the past?
We could be, yes, sir, absolutely. So it's scheduled to come up for the starting process being October 24. So.
Well, so we could be right back doing it. But can I assume that you're becoming majority leader means you will no longer do the redistricting committee, or how does that work?
That hadn't been decided yet,
okay.
But I would suspect that it would not look good for the Senate majority leader to be in charge of redistricting. So.
Well, no, that's really interesting. It's just it was such a huge issue, and to think that we're going to be right back doing it all again.
Todd, we did a lot of work in a week's time. Doing what we did normally takes a couple, 3 weeks out of session. We did a lot of cramming in that 1 week in July there.
Yeah. Well, session's going to be here in February. It'll be here before we know it. I think everybody's trying to start getting their ducks in a row because, we're sort of used to March. But you mentioned the caucus getting started with some discussions about agenda. Is there anything in particular that you're focused on in terms of issues that you think, all right, this is the year? Maybe last year, there was so much last year that kind of took over, but was there anything left on the table you think this is the year?
Absolutely. There are going to be some issues that we did not get around to last year that we will get around to this year. I think school choice will come back. You'll see something back in ballot harvesting, likely.
That's SB1, right?
It is SB1. That's correct. That's right.
Just talked to Secretary of State Wes Allen about that. He's really behind that as well.
You'll see that. You'll see, like I said, school choice. It appears that there is a couple of groups working on gaming. We'll see something in that line.
Yeah, kind of this ad hoc group saying, because in the Senate, y'all have dealt with this before successfully.
I think 3 times.
Yeah, it's always the House where there's a bottleneck or toward the end. So I've heard senators say, well, y'all in the House need to work out your differences and work out what y'all can do before the Senate considers it again.
I think there's a joint committee working when trying to come up with some compromise and some resolution to that.
Well, look, we're out of time, but again, congratulations on your election to majority leader, and we look forward to seeing you back in February.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you, and I'm sure I'll be seeing a lot more of you.
Hope so.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
Originally designated as a postal route in 1806, the old federal road stretched through the Creek Indian Territory of Lower Alabama. Alabama's federal road functioned as a major thoroughfare for western migration into the Old Southwest, ushering in a new era of national expansion and exploitation of Native American territory. Although much of the federal road has disappeared, portions of it remain today.
Joining me next is State Representative Jeremy Gray from Opelika. Mr. Gray, thanks for coming on Capitol Journal.
Thank you for having me, Todd.
This is a different setup than we're used to. Our studio's going through some changes, so they've kindly let us borrow y'all's press room here in the State House. So, all right, big question. You've thrown your name in the hat for Congress. You've announced you're running in the newly constituted 2nd Congressional District. I got to ask, what made you jump in this race?
Yeah, my parents, my grandmother, my mother, they always told me to, aspire to be the best I can, whether it was in sports, school, and this is just another element. When I looked at my leadership and how effective I was in the last 5 years that I've been here since 2018, pound for pound, bill for bill, I had some of the most, useful and effective legislation, whether it be Innovation Alabama bills, Southern Cardiac Arrest that helps with athletes and coaches understanding training, grace period bill, on and on and on. And so if not me, then who, right? You kind of have to say when you have opportunity, you have to take it. And for me, this is that opportunity. And I think that for me, I believe that I'm qualified to actually run in the seat and be a front runner in the seat.
Kind of sounds like you want to build on that legislative experience at the state level to communicate to voters, okay, I can do it at the state level, so it gives me a better opportunity to do it at the federal level.
Yeah, when you think about it, being in a super minority, sometimes, for a lot of times, you have to have bipartisanship. So being able to move bills, being able to find common ground, being able to find tough pieces of legislation, right? Like it took me 3 years to repeal the ban on yoga, right? And no lobbying, no anything, right? So being able to do things like that, being able to bring people in the middle and really educate people on the issues, that's my thing. I'm not all about fighting just to fight. I'm fighting to actually get things done. And sometimes you just have to say, let's get to the middle, find the things that we can agree on, and what we done, we can get rid of it, but we have to do what's best for Alabama. And this is the same situation for me.
Sure. Well, I do have to ask you, with a newly constituted district, it's a lot different. It goes all the way down into Mobile.
Yeah.
But you're in Lee County. You live in Lee County. That's not quite in the district. It's Russell right there. Now, there's no requirement to live in the district. You just have to live in the state. But it'll come up during the campaign. So what's your answer to those attacks that'll come your way that, hey, he doesn't even live in the district?
Well, I've represented Russell for the last 5 years. District 83 covers Lee and Russell County. I hold football camps in Russell County. I know the mayor of Phoenix City. I'm part of their education committees. I'm doing all these things in the Russell County area. And when we really think about it, where is Lee County in proximity to Russell County? For me, it's 12 minutes, right? And so when we think about interests of rural areas, Russell County, Lee County is one of the same. And for me, it's a district that I've represented for 5 years. I know the people, I know the issues. I've been able to bring resources to that community. And so why not me?
So it's probably going to be a really large field. It's still not set yet. I guess there's another week or so, maybe a little over a week for folks to qualify. But it's already starting to look like a pretty crowded field. And part of that's because the district's so big. I mean, geographically, like you said, Russell County to the east, all the way over to Mobile, to Mississippi. And so different, media markets and all that kind of stuff. So knowing that this field is not set, but it probably will be pretty large, including probably some of your colleagues, how are you going to set yourself apart to be that front runner, to set yourself apart and differentiate yourself in this field?
I tell people that I'm young, but I'm wise and I have experience, right? So I have the innovation in the youth, right? But not like when I was 32 when I first ran in 2018. I didn't have experience and people was like, you should wait your turn. Well, I'm young now and I do have the experience of 5 years and you've seen the things that I've done in and day out. And so I think with my youth and with my experience, not many people can say that in the field. Being under the age of 40 and being able to really hone into what people really think about. I'm one of those people that I'm in that age group where I can bridge the gap. You have Gen Zs, you have your older generation. You need someone that understands both and really understands the concept of the district. It's just not a metropolitan area. It's also rural. It's also suburban. You got to have a unified message of how do you actually speak to those different audiences, and I think I can. I've been up and down this state way before I wanted to run for Congress. I was just doing it because I'm passionate about what I do, and so I'll just carry that same thing on the campaign trail and hopefully to D.C.
Well, speaking of D.C., that's the ultimate destination, right? And if you just look up there these days, they just got through this 3-week fiasco with the speaker's race. There's just a ton of dysfunction when you look at Congress. Yeah, a lot of that's on the Republican side because they've got some infighting there, but same goes for Democrats. It doesn't seem like the two sides get along on basically anything. So when you see that, now some people see that and it turns them off. says, man, I don't want to be a part of that mess. Are you the opposite? Does that seem like a challenge to maybe go up there and be part of the solution to all the dysfunction?
Part of the solution, but in Congress, sometimes you just highlight certain individuals. Not everyone is rowdy. Some people are just about getting things done on both sides. I met Blake Moore, who's a Republican from Utah. He seemed like he's not the kind of guy that's rowdy. He's about getting things done. So though a lot of people get attention, those individual characters that we kind of see on TV day in and day out, it's probably majority of people just trying to get things done and working that common ground. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to be a quiet, effective leader. I don't want to be famous. I want to be effective.
Well, it's interesting because I've been arguing recently that, the incentives have kind of changed. It used to be that, because Congress, politics in general, but Congress is a team sport. And you got to work together as a team, otherwise nothing gets done. But here lately, there's been a lot of incentive just for individual members. There's a handful that really just want to promote themselves, raise the money, do all that. I think that's how the speaker thing really got started. Look, you're pretty accustomed to being on teams. Do you think that would be part of your agenda, and as being a congressman, is saying, hey guys, we've got to stay together as a team and not let individuals kind of dominate with their own political agendas?
No, I believe that. I've been playing sports all my life, and when individuals take over, the team usually is not that good. A true leader builds up everyone around them, and that's what I would try to do. When you're trying to get the spotlight, sometimes you do it by uplifting others, right? It's not about you getting the spotlight on you, it's just about you doing the work, helping out your teammates at the end of the day and getting the win. And so for me, it's all about winning. If we're not bringing the bacon to Alabama, then we're not winning.
Well, I know you're just now starting out in the campaign, and you didn't have a whole long time to think about it because it was a very short window. But what are you thinking about in terms of issues that you want to define your candidacy in this race?
Access to health care, education, child care, clean air and water. We have a climate crisis, and ag is a big thing, and being able to protect our soil and making sure that we have great produce. So really the necessities, the everyday necessities that people take for granted, those rural areas don't have that. When you think about economic progress in some of those areas like Mobile and Montgomery, how to expand the port, how to bring in industry, knowledge-based jobs, it's gonna be a mixed bag, right? You can't, it's not a one-size-fit-all model, and you have to understand the district, but the necessities, right? When you have clean water, you have food, you have housing, you have childcare, you can be a productive citizen. So that's what I would start with.
Again, I know it's early, but have you thought about maybe what committees, if you got to Congress, that, hey, I want to be on that, or any particular areas of interest?
It's almost like being a freshman, right? Like sometimes you just have to kind of wait.
And you probably won't get your top pick. Right. I can tell you that.
Now I do know I want to be a part of the sneaker caucus, right? Because I like to wear cool sneakers. But other than the committees, just when I got here to be a freshman, you don't pick your committees, right? You get to basically say I want this and this and that. But at the end of the day, you're gonna get whatever they give you.
Sure, and you named some issues that there are some nexes with committees. Well, look, a lot of this campaign is going to take place after the legislative session has started.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to be a challenge, not just for you, but for others who are lawmakers running in this race. What's that going to look like? You're going to have to basically split time and make it back for votes and things like that?
Well, I don't know what that looks like, right? But I do know that I'm young, right? I have a lot of energy. I'm not married. I don't have a family. So I will have the ability to do a lot of things that some of the other people in the field want, right? I'll be able to split time, do overtime, triple time, whatever it takes to get it done. Because at the end of the day, like you said, my name wasn't mentioned, so I'm the underdog, and that's how I'm going to fight, like every day, every hour, every second, every minute counts. So I'll be in the field.
That's right. We did this write-up about potential candidates in this brand new district, and you weren't mentioned, and so I'm a little bit embarrassed, but it's to your credit that you did it very much under the radar, and that's interesting, and a big splash was made. Well, look, we're out of time. Congratulations on entering the race. Good luck, and we'll see how it goes.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
Established in 1953, Alabama Public Television was the first educational television network in the United States. With much of the state struggling to support standalone educational systems, Governor Gordon Persons encouraged the state legislature to establish APT to ensure access to educational television for all Alabamians. Among the early children's programs broadcast in the 1950s was Cabbages and Kings, written and produced by Auburn University. APT soon added programs for elementary schools, teacher instruction, and adult educational programs that were scheduled in the evening hours, along with national programming. Since then, 25 other states have established public television networks, all based on Alabama's model. Alabama Public Television's educational mission and national leadership continue today.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with more Capital Journal at the same time right here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.